Welcome to Christian Warrior Training. My name is Keith. In this episode, we have a super important thing to talk about. With the war going on between Israel and Hamas, we have to talk about the threat between Hezbollah, the Mexican drug cartels, and America, and how our back door is wide open for an attack. And it's especially important for those of you that run church security teams because you're a target, whether you know it or not. All right, before we get into it, do me a favor. If you love guns and you love Jesus, then you're in the right place. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment, hit that notification bell. It all lets YouTube know that we're important. Other people should see our message. We're getting a lot of new followers. I appreciate everything you're doing for me. You guys are awesome. All right, let's get into it. First off, so we all know what's going on in Israel right now with Hamas invading Israel, killing hundreds of people, wounding thousands. There is going to be a ginormous war going on in that area. Part of that is Hezbollah. Hezbollah is being controlled by Iran. They are a proxy of Iran. And if we get into, we meaning the United States, get into this war that's about to start off, or we make Iran mad in some way, they have already said that they will unleash Hezbollah upon the United States. We're going to talk about their sleeper cells, what they have. This isn't all hearsay. We're going to talk about police memos. We're going to talk about the intelligence that we have. It's been going on for a long time, and we're going to talk about how it's going to impact you at your church, and we're going to give you tips on how you can take care of yourselves. All right. So there are some historical connections with some great examples of what's going on there. So over the years, there have been a lot of different reports and incidents highlighting a nexus between Hezbollah and Mexican drug trafficking organizations like Los Zetas. Now, Los Zetas it was a very violent drug cartel in Mexico that was ex-military special forces that have actually were trained by the United States. But now they've been taken over, but we know they're still operating there. Now, that collaboration allegedly allowed both groups to expand their operational capabilities and their reach. Now, way back in 2010, Mexican authorities arrested a Hezbollah operative named Jamil Nasser in Tijuana. Nasser was allegedly tasked with establishing a Hezbollah network in Mexico and South America, and his arrest highlighted the active presence and intent of Hezbollah to broaden its operations within the proximity of the United States border. Follow that up with a Tucson Police Department memo back in 2010 that indicated that Hezbollah had established a presence in Mexico. Now, look, border cities like Tucson, they have reach in Mexico. They have contacts in Mexico. I mean, I was a police officer way up in Northern California, and I still had contacts that were in Mexico that can send me information. So that's not unheard of. Okay. That memo suggested that there might be stockpiles of arms forming and that operations have been underway between Hezbollah and Mexican Los Zetas. Now, this connection was further underlined by the arrest of Jamal Youssef in New York in 2009, which exposed a significant case of assault rifles, hand grenades, explosives, anti-tank munitions, and more. So according to Youssef, these weapons were stored in Mexico after being smuggled from Iraq by members of Hezbollah. Now, let's talk a little bit more about Jamal Youssef's arrest and some more revelations there. So he was arrested in New York. He played a pivotal role in exposing the extent of Hezbollah's activities and connections in Mexico. Now, his arrest and subsequent revelations provided valuable insights into the collaboration between Hezbollah and Mexican drug cartels. Part of that was a weapon smuggling operation. Now, Youssef admitted to being involved in stealing weapons from Iraq for Hezbollah. His confession included details about Hezbollah stockpiles in Mexico. This stockpile comprised a significant arsenal, including 100 M16 assault rifles, 100 ARs, 25 hand grenades, C4 explosives, and anti-tank weapons. It also showed collaboration with Mexican drug cartels. Now, Youssef's revelation suggested that weapons smuggled from Iraq were being stored in Mexico with the assistance of Mexican drug cartels. Now, this collaboration raised concerns about the potential for Hezbollah to access advanced weaponry and explosives, which could pose a severe threat. There was also explosive training for cartels. So Youssef's statement indicated that Hezbollah was involved in providing explosives training to members of Mexican drug cartels. Now, this training was implied an alarming shift in tactics for these criminal organizations, incorporating elements typically associated with militant groups. With that, there's been a continuing issue of car bombs in Mexico. And those car bombs, the signature of those explosives, because they leave a little signature of how they're done, are exactly like Hezbollah. We're going to get more into drug trafficking routes. We're just going to lay the groundwork so you know Hezbollah is hooked up with the cartels. We're going to talk about the border, and then we're going to shift it right up to what that means to you and your church. Another issue is that we're starting to see Farsi tattoos among imprisoned gang members. Now, U.S. law enforcement officers across the Southwest region noted an increase in imprisoned gang members with Farsi tattoos, signifying their loyalty to Hezbollah. Now, this observation further underscored the presence and influence of Hezbollah within the criminal landscape. Now, this partnership has mutual benefits. So the partnership between Hezbollah and Mexican drug cartels has resulted in those mutual benefits, like Mexican cartels adopting Hezbollah's tunneling experience. Now, this is significant because tunnels have been a hallmark of Hezbollah's operations along the Lebanese-Israeli border. Cartels have used these tunnels not only for drug smuggling, but also potentially for other illicit activities. They can still use these same tunnels to smuggle those M16C4 hand grenades into the United States. There's also the issue of fear-based tactics. So another aspect of expertise sharing is the adoption of fear-based tactics. Now, Mexican drug cartels traditionally involved in the drug trade have increasingly used tactics like car bombings we mentioned earlier. Now, this represents a deviation from their typical modus operandi, or MO, and suggests a possible exchange of operational methodologies with Hezbollah. So it's important to note that car bombings are more commonly associated with terrorist activities, which, man, I'm sorry, but that's exactly what drug cartels are right now. We talked about prisoners with Farsi tattoos. Along with that, we have the apprehension of several SIAs, or those special interest aliens, from countries like Iran, Yemen, Sudan, Afghanistan at the border, and it raises concern about the extent of infiltration and the security implications that holds. I train law enforcement every week, all year long. I have a lot of Border Patrol come to my classes. I cannot tell you how many times they're telling me that they're intercepting not just these special interest aliens, but they're also getting Chinese military-age males, people that they believed are Chinese special forces that are infiltrating our country. Our border is wide open, and there is no stopping it. So let's move on and talk about sleeper cells in the United States. Now, there are concerns about Hezbollah sleeper cells within the U.S. Now, these cells consist of operatives who remain dormant until activated for specific missions. Now, in a heightened geopolitical scenario, like a conflict involving Hezbollah or Iran, these sleeper cells can be activated to carry out attacks or support other operations. That is concerning. We've known about that for, I want to say 20 years ago, I got a memo on that in an intelligence bulletin. So we've all known forever about this issue. The part that worries me is the logistical support that Mexican drug cartels can supply Hezbollah in attacking the United States. So the drug cartels have an extensive network within the United States. Now, I'm up in Idaho, Southwest Idaho, and I see cartel members here. I travel all over the United States. I see cartel members all the time because they don't try to hide it. It's obvious in their vehicles with my cop friends out there. You know what you're looking for. I don't want to give away everything because it's all stuff that we use to go catch them. But they do stick out like a sore thumb. So the Mexican drug cartels have that extensive network and resources, and they could provide logistical support to Hezbollah's sleeper cells on U.S. soil. Now, this support might include safe houses, smuggling routes, weapons procurement, and financial assistance. Now, this collaboration could significantly enhance the operational capabilities of these cells. Now, a lot of you are probably saying right now, they can just buy guns in the United States. Okay, machine guns, hand grenades, those are NFA items and a little bit more difficult to get. We left all of those weapons in Afghanistan. And I already showed you an incident where a guy was arrested in New York with anti-tank weapons, grenades, C4 machine guns. They're going to use those tunnels in their current cells over here and their current smuggling networks to get it to Mexico, to bring it across the border, cause issues in America. Now, look, 20 years ago, I was first alerted to this. I was working narcotics. We were working cases with the feds. They sent us memos letting us know, or intelligence bulletins letting us know that this was an issue. That threat has only thrived in the last 20 years with the incompetence of our federal government. So let's talk about the threat to American churches. Now, if you're not a Christian, stay here anyways, because it's important for you. You're going to want to know this stuff anyways, because I'm going to talk about how they're going to attack churches, but they could attack grocery stores, universities, workplaces, you name it. All right. So let's talk about that threat to American churches. So while Hezbollah primarily focuses on geopolitical and regional objectives, it's important to recognize that their operations have a global reach. So in the context of the United States, American churches could be potential targets for several reasons. Firstly, religious institutions often represent significant symbols of American culture and values, and it makes them targets for terrorist groups seeking to generate fear and chaos. You also have the religious significance, right? Additionally, Hezbollah's ideology and its association with Shia Islam may motivate them to target churches or other religious institutions that do not align with their beliefs. So while their primary focus has been on geopolitical conflicts in the Middle East, any shift in their strategy or objectives could lead to attacks on soft targets like churches. American churches, particularly smaller, less secure ones, may be vulnerable to security breaches or attacks. Now, many churches have open door policies and welcome congregations from diverse backgrounds, which can make them accessible targets. The lack of comprehensive security measures in some of those churches could be exploited by terrorist groups. The other issue is weaponry and tactics. Now, Hezbollah's association with Mexican cartels and their expertise in smuggling and trafficking raise concerns about the potential for the illicit movement of weapons and explosives. Now, in the event that Hezbollah decides to target American churches, they may have access to weaponry and tactics that could cause significant harm to our people. Now, the partnership between Hezbollah and Mexican cartels could provide logistical support for any potential attack on an American church. This support might include the smuggling of operatives and materials across the border, further enhancing the threat posed by sleeper cells or lone actors. And then you have intelligence sharing. Now, the blurring of lines between terrorism and national criminal operations means that Hezbollah may have access to intelligence or information that could aid them in targeting American churches. Now, the intelligence sharing within this nexus could potentially provide them with valuable insights on soft targets and vulnerabilities. Lastly, I got a couple points to make. This is super important, man. I want to talk about the FBI. The FBI is failing the American public. If you go over to my other channel, 2A Cops Supporting Gun Rights, I've done lots of videos on the state of the FBI. One of those videos, I talked about how the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force commander for the western part of the U.S. said in a conference to police officers that they are no longer worried about Middle East extremism and that all of their focus is on right-wing extremism. Now, what's right-wing extremism? When they explained it to us, it was people like me and you. And that scares the hell out of me. And now the problem is they totally dismiss this, even though we have this threat on our southern border. You see the problem there. They are tied up with investigating political issues that they are not looking at the threat on our southern border, and we're going to pay the price. Now, look, it all depends on if these sleeper cells, which we know are in the United States, and we know that's been that way for decades, if they get activated, your church is going to become a target. And when will they get activated? You might not know. You'll be like Israel and just get hammered with it. So how do you get around that? Look, I've done lots of videos on this channel about setting up a security team, what your security team should look like. I even have training to train your security team people for free. If you go to courses.christianwarriortraining.com, you can get a certificate, get free training. It'll help you. I think it's super important. I think right now you need to have a security team. They need to be trained. They need to be armed. And you need to have people at each entryway coming in. You need to have people in the parking lot watching for the threat coming in. And then if it just so happens today is Sunday, I was at church today. I saw a suspicious guy. Most people would just blow them off, but I went over and said, "Hey, brother, how are you? Welcome to the church." Turns out my suspicions were unsubstantiated. This guy might be watching the video right now going, "Wait, you were suspicious of me?" He didn't know it, but he needed to be contacted. Okay. And I did. Turned out everything was okay, and it was no big deal. He's not for the worse for wear. Neither am I. But what if that was a bad man coming to do bad things? Somebody needed to start off that conversation and see what's going on. Look, if you like this content, hit follow, subscribe, leave a comment. I want to know what you have to say. Go sign up for my newsletter, Christian Warrior Training. Just go to christianwarriortraining.com. You can sign up for my newsletter. Every week I put out training material and news for church security teams. All right. More than ever, I always sign off with, remember your ABCs, always be caring. It is more important than ever to be doing that. The world is changing. Change with it. Don't be caught with your pants down. All right. So with that, remember your ABCs, always be caring.